So why stories? Why did Arcstone? Why did we decide that storytelling was something really important to bring to our clients? About 10 years ago, we've always done a lot of website and online content, and 10 years ago, we really started to shift to use more stories in content and take a more storytelling approach. And we noticed that when we built a landing page or had a video campaign or did something and it was highly story focused, that things were more effective. People were getting more donations, getting more volunteers. All of their communications were much more effective when it came from a place of storytelling. And all the calls to action that organizations wanted to happen from their online media, they became much more effective when we really leaned into the story-based elements of their communications. And we're going to talk a little bit about why that happens. And kind of this webinar is three main parts. We're going to sort of set up the stage here for why storytelling is so important, give you some things to think about. And then we're going to go and show a lot of examples. And then we will also have sort of a discussion and tap into Arwen's expertise and really get some great information and advice from her. So the first part, why tell your story? Why communicate through storytelling? Thank you for filling out that poll too. It looks like a lot of you, 94% said you have had a story move you to take action. And this is kind of uh, great because we're going to talk about why that happens here. Storytelling has some unique benefits. So if you're trying to convey a complicated concept, storytelling actually is a really great way to do it. Human beings are very wired to learn things and retain knowledge through stories. If you think about when you were growing up, how the first bits of information were taught to you, a lot of stories and songs and story-based kind of learning. That's because it's how we learn as humans. Information is sticky for us when it's in a story. It also makes memories. It makes you remember information better. If you meet someone and they tell a really engaging story, you're going to remember that person more. And stories also help drive action, which is really important for the nonprofit world. You are usually trying to drive a lot of action in your communication. You're trying to raise funds or reach people who could use your services or get volunteers or something, right? Or bring attention to the cause you're championing. So stories can drive action, and especially when the action you want is really big, right? If you're trying to raise a very large amount of money, or if you're trying to get someone to volunteer a lot of their time, story-based elements can create a more emotional reaction and help drive more significant action. So one example is that we'll come back a couple of times. Um, we worked a lot with this group called MN Fire Hire, and MN Fire Hire got a very large grant from the government to get more local firefighter volunteers, not full-time paid staff, but volunteers. The tradition of volunteer firefighting is going down and down and down in the country, and there's a huge need. So the federal government wanted to shore up local firefighting organizations. So this was a very big ask. Like I just talked about how stories can help drive action. The ask that their organization had was, we would like you to volunteer to be a firefighter. We literally want you to volunteer to risk your life, get up in the middle of the night, fight fires, go to car accidents, spend time away from your family, have to drop what you're doing, at the drop of a hat. I mean, this is a very large ask. So we recommended to them, take a very storytelling based style to your communications and to your ask and to your media that you put out there. So we literally use the stories of their volunteers. We picked a bunch that represented different groups of people who make sort of ideal volunteer firefighters. And we'll talk a little about how you identify groups and sort of your audience. And this was a very successful campaign. They ended up just crushing their goal, um, which for us was a bummer because they didn't get more money and we had to stop working with them. But that's okay because their goal was to, get firefighters, and it worked. Another example of an organization really leaning into storytelling and their culture of storytelling too is Minnesota Masonic Charities. They also raise a lot of money, hundreds of $1 million, which helps hospitals locally, a lot of different things. But this new organization they wanted to bring a lot of attention to was their children's clinic. And so they have at their organization someone really dedicated to collecting stories. And they've built this culture of storytelling. So when they have a new initiative like this children's clinic where they need to get a lot of donations and really shore it up, they have a huge base of content and stories to lean on, and can really put some amazing content out there that really drives people to action. I'm going to switch the poll up here because I believe we have a poll about if you have someone in your organization who kind of thinks about this, right? Thinks about storytelling and thinks about collecting your stories. So a big benefit is in your organization if you can create that culture, create a culture of storytelling. It looks like a lot of you, about over half, are saying that you do have someone who collects stories. So that's great. That's great. To get the best stories sort of out of your organization, it's helpful to have someone sort of thinking about it. Maybe it's not their dedicated job, but it's part of their job. Um, so that's kind of the why of storytelling, why that this concept of storytelling can help your organization so much. Any kind of action you're trying to drive, storytelling will really help with that.